The massive alien ship hung in space like a crystal cathedral, its translucent walls catching the light from Jupiter's distant sun. Commander Velthar stood on the bridge, his tall, ethereal form radiating the confidence of a species that had conquered 1,000 worlds. His pale blue skin shimmered with patterns that shifted like flowing water, and his large dark eyes held the cold intelligence of millennia. "Sir, we have detected 3 primitive vessels approaching our position," reported his communications officer, her voice carrying the musical tones of their ancient language. Velthar turned to examine the holographic display floating before him. 3 small crude ships made of simple metal plating drifted toward his fleet. Their design was so basic it almost made him laugh. Fusion drives that barely qualified as propulsion, energy weapons that couldn't penetrate his shields, and hulls so thin they might crack from a strong solar wind. "These are the beings that dare to travel beyond their home world?" he asked, his voice filled with amusement. "Their largest ship is smaller than our waste disposal units." On the bridge of the human vessel New Seoul, Admiral Kim Dae-ho watched the alien fleet with growing concern. 12 massive ships surrounded his small diplomatic mission, each one large enough to carry his entire fleet inside its cargo bay. The aliens had appeared without warning at the edge of Earth's solar system, their arrival detected only when they chose to reveal themselves. "Sir, incoming transmission," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Park So-young. "They're using our own radio frequencies against us." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Commander Velthar. Even through the transmission, his presence filled the human bridge with an aura of absolute authority. When he spoke, his words were perfectly translated into Korean, though his tone carried unmistakable condescension. "Primitive beings of the 3rd planet from your star," Velthar began, his voice echoing through the bridge like a judgment from the heavens. "I am Commander Velthar of the Vilethani Empire. For 10,000 of your brief years we have brought order and civilization to the chaos of lesser species throughout this galaxy." Admiral Kim felt his crew's tension rise. Captain Park Min-ho, commanding the escort vessel Busan, maintained radio silence as planned, but Kim could see the worry on his officers' faces through the video link. "We have observed your clumsy attempts at space exploration," Velthar continued, gesturing dismissively at the human ships. "Your technology is crude, barely advanced beyond the tools used by our children in their learning games. You possess no unified government, no significant scientific achievements, and lifespans so brief that you die before you can accumulate meaningful wisdom." Dr. Lee Soo-jin, the chief scientist aboard the research vessel Jeju, quietly activated her scanning equipment. Her readings immediately confirmed what their eyes had already told them. The alien technology was beyond anything humanity could currently understand. Energy readings that exceeded Earth's total power output, materials that shouldn't exist according to human physics, and defensive systems that seemed to bend space itself. But something else caught her attention. The energy signatures from all 12 alien ships were nearly identical. Not similar, identical. As if they had been built from the same template, with no variation in design or function. "Your species shows promise," Velthar continued, his tone suggesting he was offering a great gift. "But you are clearly not ready for independence among the civilized races. The Vilethani Empire, in its infinite mercy, offers you a choice." He paused dramatically, allowing his words to sink in. On the human ships, every crew member waited in tense silence. "Submit to our guidance and become a client species under our protection. Your people will be relocated to suitable worlds where they can serve useful functions within our empire. Your crude attempts at technology will be replaced with tools appropriate to your limited capabilities. You will be fed, housed, and protected from the dangers of the galaxy that you clearly cannot face alone." Admiral Kim's jaw tightened, but he maintained his diplomatic composure. Around him, his bridge crew struggled to hide their anger at the aliens' dismissive words. "The alternative," Velthar's voice grew colder, "is that you return to your world and continue your current path. When our expansion naturally reaches your system, which it will in perhaps 50 of your years, resistance will be met with the full force of the Empire. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships, Your fragmented politics cannot organize effective defense, and your short lives mean you cannot sustain a long campaign. The commander leaned forward, his alien features taking on what might have been a smile. We have conquered species far more advanced than yours, primitive ones. Species with technology you cannot even imagine, with unified governments spanning multiple star systems, with lifespans measured in centuries rather than decades. All of them fell to the might of the Vilethani Empire. Admiral Kim finally found his voice. We appreciate your generous offer, Commander Velthar. Such a decision would affect all of humanity. We request permission to return to Earth and present your proposal to our leaders. Velthar's laugh sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, beautiful and utterly without warmth. Of course, primitive one. Take all the time you need to debate among your fractured tribes. We grant you one full cycle of your planet around its star to reach a decision. The transmission began to fade, but Velthar's final words carried clearly across space. Choose wisely, little humans. The universe is vast and dangerous, filled with threats you cannot comprehend. Under our protection, your species might survive. Alone, you will surely perish. As the alien fleet began to withdraw to the outer system, Admiral Kim turned to his crew. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on them all like a crushing gravity well. The emergency meeting room in Seoul buzzed with nervous energy, as representatives from every nation on Earth gathered around the massive conference table. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood at the center, his uniform still bearing the dust of his hasty return from space. The holographic recordings of the alien fleet floated above the table like ghosts of humanity's possible future. President Lee Min-jung of the Korean Federation leaned forward, her face pale with worry. Admiral, are you certain about their capabilities? Could our nuclear weapons pose any threat to their ships? Kim shook his head grimly. Madam President, their smallest escort vessel could probably survive a direct hit from our most powerful warhead. We're not just outgunned, we're fighting with stone knives against laser cannons. Dr. Lee Soo-jin activated her tablet, displaying the energy readings she had gathered during the encounter. The power output from just one of their ships equals the total energy production of our entire planet, she explained in her calm, scientific voice. Their hull materials appear to be some kind of crystalline composite that our current physics can't fully explain. The British Prime Minister James Crawford threw his hands up in frustration. Then what are we discussing? If resistance is impossible, shouldn't we consider their offer? At least our species would survive. As slaves? Growled General Jiang Wei from the Chinese delegation. They made it clear we would be relocated, controlled, treated like pets in a zoo. Dr. Lee stood up, her small frame somehow commanding attention from the room full of world leaders. Actually, I think we might have missed something important. During our encounter with them, the room fell silent. Secretary General Park Ji-woo nodded for her to continue. Their technology is incredibly advanced, yes, but it's also completely standardized. Every ship in their fleet had identical energy signatures, identical defensive patterns, identical everything. She activated a new display showing the comparative analysis. This suggests they've reached a point where innovation has stopped. They build the same ships, use the same tactics, follow the same strategies they've used for thousands of years. Captain Choi Sung-min, recently promoted to head Earth's newly formed Strategic Defense Division, studied the data carefully. What does that mean for us, Doctor? It means they're predictable. When you've conquered every enemy using the same methods for millennia, you stop adapting. You stop learning new ways to fight. Dr. Lee's eyes lit up with the excitement of discovery. They called us primitive, and they're right. But being primitive means we're still evolving, still changing, still finding new solutions to impossible problems. Admiral Kim began to understand where she was heading. You're saying our disadvantage might actually be an advantage? Exactly. Every war in human history has forced us to innovate. When we couldn't match an enemy's strength, we found new ways to fight. When we couldn't build better weapons, we changed the rules of warfare itself. Dr. Lee activated another display showing Earth's scientific infrastructure. Look at what we've built in just the last century. particle accelerators, satellite networks, quantum computers, fusion reactors. Separately, these are just research tools. But together, she paused dramatically, letting the implications sink in. Together, they could become something the galaxy has never seen before. Major Han Ji-woo, the intelligence officer who had been quietly taking notes, looked up from her tablet. What exactly are you proposing, Doctor? We stop trying to fight them with better spaceships and bigger guns. Instead, we weaponize physics itself. Dr. Lee brought up a complex diagram showing gravitational field equations. For decades, we've been experimenting with gravitational manipulation in our laboratories, small scale, controlled environments. But what if we scaled it up? What if we turned our entire planet into a weapon? The room erupted in confused murmurs. President Lee Min-jung raised her hand for silence. Doctor, please explain this in terms we can all understand. Dr. Lee smiled, the expression making her look younger than her 40 years. Their ships are designed to operate in the predictable gravitational environment of space. Uniform gravity wells, steady acceleration curves, standard orbital mechanics. But what if we could create gravitational anomalies that change randomly? Sudden spikes that crush their hulls, directional pulls that tear them apart, localized distortions that make their navigation useless. General Jiang Wei frowned. Is such a thing even possible? With their technology? No. With ours? Maybe. Our primitive approach to science has always been about breaking rules, finding new ways to do impossible things. While they perfected existing methods, we learned to think outside the normal patterns. Captain Park Min-ho, who had commanded the escort vessel during first contact, raised his hand. How would we deploy such a weapon? They'll be watching us from their position at the edge of the solar system. Dr. Lee's smile widened. We invite them down for our surrender ceremony. Make it a big spectacle, broadcast it across the galaxy. Let their arrogance bring them close enough for our trap to work. The room fell silent as the audacity of the plan sank in. They were discussing deceiving beings who had conquered 1,000 worlds, luring them into range of a weapon that existed, only in theory. Admiral Kim looked around the table at the faces of Earth's leaders. Fear was still there, but something else was growing alongside it. Hope, determination, the stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. How long would you need to build this weapon? He asked. Dr. Lee consulted her calculations. If every nation contributes their scientific resources, if we network every particle accelerator on Earth, if we modify our satellite systems and reprogram our quantum computers, 11 months. Maybe 10 if we push hard. Secretary General Park Ji-woo stood up slowly. Then we have our answer. We tell the aliens we need time to convince our people to accept their generous offer. Meanwhile, we prepare to show them exactly how dangerous, primitive humans can be. The vote was unanimous. The massive Valthani fleet had grown like a cancer in Earth's outer solar system over the past 10 months. What had started as 12 ships now numbered over 200, a spectacular display of imperial might that could be seen through telescopes, from Earth's surface. Commander Velthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, gazing down at the small blue world that would soon join his collection of conquered planets. Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the human leadership, reported his communications officer. They say they're ready to make their final decision. Velthar's crystalline features shifted into what passed for a smile among his species. Excellent. Put them through. Admiral Kim Dae-ho appeared on the main screen, his military uniform replaced by formal diplomatic robes. Behind him, the flags of every Earth nation created a colorful backdrop that spoke of unity among the primitive species. Commander Velthar, on behalf of all humanity, we have reached our decision, Kim began, his voice carrying just the right note of defeated resignation. We accept your generous offer to join the Valthani Empire as a client species. Velthar felt a surge of satisfaction. Another world added to the Empire without the mess of orbital bombardment or surface warfare. A wise choice, Admiral Kim. Your species shows more intelligence than I initially credited. We would like to request one final ceremony, Kim continued. Our people need to see their leaders formally transfer authority to the Empire. We've prepared a grand ceremony in Seoul with representatives from every nation. It will be broadcast across our planet and transmitted to the galaxy, showing other primitive species the wisdom of joining your empire peacefully. The alien commander considered this request. A public spectacle of human surrender would indeed serve the Empire's interests. Other species on the edge of Valthani expansion would see the footage and choose submission over destruction. Very well, Velthar decided. I will attend this ceremony personally, along with my senior staff. When do you propose to hold this surrender ritual? 3 days from now, Commander. We need time to prepare the broadcasting equipment and gather our leaders. Kim bowed slightly, the gesture perfectly calculated to appeal to Valthani pride. We want the entire galaxy to witness humanity's wise choice to serve the Empire. After the transmission ended, Sub-Commander Kethnar approached his superior. Sir, is it wise to land on their surface? Our intelligence suggests they've been unusually active these past months. Velthar waved dismissively. Active doing what? Building monuments to our glory? Preparing festivals for our arrival? Their weapons cannot harm us. Their primitive minds cannot conceive of threats we haven't already considered. Besides, a show of confidence serves the Empire's interests. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the real preparations were reaching their final stages. Dr. Lee Soo-jin stood in the hidden command center buried 3 kilometers beneath Seoul, surrounded by displays showing gravitational field generators positioned across the globe. The past 10 months had been a miracle of human cooperation and ingenuity. Every particle accelerator on Earth had been secretly modified and networked together. The Large Hadron Collider at CERN, the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider in New York, the Super Proton Synchrotron in Geneva, even the smaller university facilities in Japan and China, all connected through quantum communication links that the aliens couldn't detect. Final systems check, Dr. Lee announced to her team. Dr. Park, what's the status of the satellite network? Dr. Park Hyun-woo, her lead engineer, consulted his readings. All geostationary satellites have been equipped with the gravitational field amplifiers. The orbital mechanics are perfect. When the alien fleet enters the target zone, they'll be completely surrounded by our field generators. Captain Choi Sung-min monitored the enemy fleet from his position at the military command center. The aliens are maintaining standard formation. Predictable spacing, uniform power signatures, no variation in their orbital patterns. Just like you said they would be, Doctor. The beauty of the trap lay in its simplicity. The Valthani had grown, so accustomed to easy victories that they'd stopped considering new forms of warfare. Their ships were marvels of engineering, designed to handle any conventional weapon, but they operated on the assumption that gravitational fields followed natural laws. Major Han Ji-woo's intelligence teams had spent months studying the alien fleet through long-range sensors. Every ship's position, energy output, and structural weak points had been mapped and analyzed. The aliens maintained perfect formation because their tactical doctrine hadn't changed in centuries. Remember, Dr. Lee addressed her team, we only get one chance at this. The moment we activate the gravitational fields, they'll know what we're doing. We need to maintain the distortions long enough to cripple their entire fleet before they can escape or adapt. The ceremony location had been chosen with surgical precision. Seoul's central plaza sat directly above the most powerful gravitational field generator, hidden in the bedrock below. When the aliens landed for the surrender ceremony, they would be standing at the epicenter of humanity's secret weapon. Captain Park Min-ho coordinated the final details from his position at the broadcasting center. The surrender ceremony would indeed be transmitted across the galaxy, but not the surrender the aliens expected. Every species under Valthani rule would see what happened when you underestimated the primitive humans. Alien shuttles are beginning their descent, reported the tracking officer. 6 vessels carrying approximately 40 Valthani officials, including their command staff. Admiral Kim adjusted his ceremonial robes and checked the hidden activation switch built into his podium. The switch that would send the signal to every gravitational field generator on Earth, turning the planet itself into a weapon of unprecedented power. This is it, he announced over the secure channel. In 3 hours, we either save humanity or die trying. Above them, Commander Velthar's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, carrying the alien leadership directly into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. The Central Plaza in Seoul had never seen such a gathering. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in carefully arranged rows, their faces showing the perfect mixture of resignation and dignity that the moment demanded. Massive screens surrounded the plaza, ready to broadcast humanity's surrender to every corner of the galaxy. Commander Velthar and his senior staff stood behind the ceremonial podium, their crystalline armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. Admiral Kim Dae-ho approached the podium with measured steps, his hand resting casually near the hidden activation switch built into the wooden surface. Above them, the Velthani fleet maintained its perfect formation in Earth's orbit, 200 ships arranged in geometric precision that spoke of millennia of military tradition. Today marks a new chapter in human history, Admiral Kim began, his voice carrying clearly across the plaza and through the subspace transmitters to the watching galaxy. We stand before beings who have traveled between the stars for 10,000 years, who have brought order to countless worlds. Commander Velthar nodded approvingly. The human was handling his species' defeat with appropriate dignity. Soon this tedious ceremony would end, and he could return to his flagship to oversee the integration of humanity into the Empire. They have called us primitive, Kim continued, his tone growing stronger despite the words. They see our short lives and call us weak. They see our divided nations and call us chaotic. They see our simple technology and call us inferior. Dr. Lee Soo-jin sat in the front row, her tablet displaying the final readings from the gravitational field generators hidden across the globe. Every system showed green. The particle accelerators were spinning at maximum power, their exotic matter streams ready to create gravitational distortions that would make a black hole seem gentle. Perhaps they are right to call us primitive, Kim said, his hand moving closer to the activation switch. We have not conquered 1,000 worlds. We have not perfected the art of making other species kneel before us. We have not learned to see the universe as something to be owned and controlled. In the hidden command center beneath the plaza, Captain Choi Sung-min watched the orbital display with intense focus. The alien fleet hung in space like fruit waiting to be picked, their standard formation making them perfect targets for the gravitational weapon. But being primitive has taught us something these advanced beings have forgotten. Kim's voice rose with passion that seemed genuine to every observer. It has taught us that when faced with impossible odds, humans find impossible solutions. His hand found the activation switch. They called us primitive. They were wrong. Kim pressed the switch. The effect was immediate and devastating. Throughout Earth's orbital space, gravitational field generators that had been disguised as communication satellites suddenly activated in perfect synchronization. The carefully calculated gravitational distortions erupted like invisible storms, creating pockets of crushing force and directional pulls that defied every law of normal space physics. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Commander Velthar felt his ship shudder like a living thing in pain. Warning lights flashed across every surface as his crew scrambled to understand what was happening. "Report!" he screamed, his usual composure shattered by the impossibility of the situation. "Gravitational anomalies throughout the fleet," his navigation officer called out, her voice cracking with panic. "The distortions are artificial, sir. They're pulling us in multiple directions at once." The flagship's crystalline hull began to crack as gravitational forces that shouldn't exist tore at its structure. Around the Eternal Dominion, other ships in the fleet were suffering even worse fates. Smaller vessels were being crushed like tin cans, their perfect engineering useless against forces that changed direction and intensity with chaotic randomness. Dr. Lee Soo-jin watched her readings with fascination and horror. The gravitational weapon was working better than her most optimistic projections. The alien ships, designed for the predictable gravity wells of normal space, had no defense against the constantly shifting forces that now surrounded them. "Target the command ships first," she spoke into her communicator. "Focus the strongest distortions on their flagship and the carrier vessels." Captain Park Min-ho, monitoring the battle from the military command center, watched in amazement as the alien fleet disintegrated before his eyes. Ships that had seemed invincible were being torn apart by invisible hands, their debris creating a growing cloud of wreckage in Earth's orbit. Commander Velthar staggered across his tilting bridge as another gravitational wave hit his ship. Through the main view screen, he could see the Sovereign Dawn, one of his largest dreadnoughts, being pulled into a spiral pattern that was tearing it in half. "Impossible," he gasped. "These primitives don't have this technology. Our intelligence." Reports showed nothing like this. His communications officer, struggling to maintain her footing, managed to establish contact with the surface. "Sir, I'm receiving a transmission from the human admiral." Kim's face appeared on the screen, no longer showing any trace of submission. Behind him, the ceremony continued. But now it was clearly not a surrender, but a declaration of war. "Commander Velthar," Kim said calmly, "you made one critical error in your assessment of humanity. You assumed that being primitive meant being predictable. You studied our ships, our weapons, our military capabilities, and concluded we posed no threat." Another massive gravitational distortion caught the Eternal Dominion, and Velthar had to grab a support beam to avoid being thrown across the bridge. "But you never studied our imagination," Kim continued. "You never considered that a species desperate enough might weaponize physics itself. You never thought that primitives might break the rules you considered absolute." Through his ship's sensors, Velthar could see the scope of the disaster. His entire fleet, the pride of the Veltani Empire, was being systematically destroyed by forces that defied comprehension. Ships were crashing into each other, being flung into Earth's atmosphere, or simply crushed by gravitational pressures that appeared and disappeared without warning. "Welcome to human warfare, Commander," Kim said as the transmission ended. "We hope you find it educational." The sky was falling, and with it, the myth of Velthani invincibility. 6 months after the destruction of the Velthani fleet, the galaxy was a different place. In the research laboratories aboard the orbital station Sol Prime, Dr. Li Sujin studied the strange mixture of human and alien technology that now powered humanity's expansion into space. The station itself had been built from the wreckage of Commander Velthar's flagship, its crystalline hull repurposed to house Earth's most advanced scientific equipment. "The liberation of the Altair system is complete," reported Captain Choi Sung-min during the morning briefing. His image flickered slightly on the holographic display, transmitted from the bridge of the battleship New Earth, somewhere in the Outer Rim territories. "The Velthani garrison never saw our gravitational mines coming. Local species are calling us the rule breakers." Admiral Kim Dae-ho smiled at the name. From his position as commander of the Terran Liberation Fleet, he had overseen the freedom of 23 star systems in the past half-year. Each victory brought new allies and new technologies to the growing coalition that now challenged Velthani authority across the galaxy. The war had become something unprecedented in galactic history. For 10,000 years, interstellar conflicts had followed predictable patterns. Larger fleets defeated smaller ones. Superior technology overcame inferior weapons. Ancient empires absorbed younger civilizations. But humanity had changed those rules completely. "Intelligence reports from the core worlds," announced Major Han Ji-woo, now Director of Galactic Intelligence, her voice coming through the secure communication channel. 3 more client species have declared independence from the Empire. The Velthani are losing control of entire sectors. The irony was not lost on any of them. Earth's primitive approach to warfare had proven more effective than millennia of refined military doctrine. While other species had focused on building better versions of existing weapons, humans had reimagined the fundamental nature of combat itself. Dr. Park Hyun-woo, Lee Soo-jin's chief engineer, activated a display showing their latest breakthrough. "We've successfully merged Velthani power generation with our gravitational manipulation technology. The result is a weapon system that can be installed on ships as small as frigates." The transformation of human technology had been remarkable. Salvaged alien materials provided the raw power needed for large-scale gravitational distortions, while human innovation found new ways to deploy and control these forces. The combination produced weapons that operated on principles the galaxy had never seen. Captain Park Min-ho transmitted his latest report from the Vega system, where his task force was supporting a local rebellion against Valthani rule. Another successful operation. The Crystalline Confederation has joined our alliance. They're sharing their quantum communication networks in exchange for protection from Imperial retaliation. The speed of change was breathtaking. Systems that had been under Valthani control for centuries were breaking free, supported by human fleets that could appear anywhere in the galaxy through captured alien jump gates. The Empire's rigid command structure, designed for controlling compliant populations, proved completely unable to handle widespread simultaneous rebellions. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the United Earth Congress, now expanded to accommodate representatives from dozens of liberated worlds, Admiral Kim prepared to address the growing alliance. Through the massive windows, Earth's blue surface shone peacefully, no longer threatened by alien invasion but serving as the unlikely capital of a galactic revolution. 1 year ago, they called us primitive, Kim began, his words broadcast live to every free world in the galaxy. The Valthani Empire measured us by their ancient standards and found us lacking. They believed that age meant wisdom, that technological perfection was the ultimate achievement, that their way of war was the only way. In the audience, beings from 100 different species listened with the intense attention of those who had recently discovered freedom. Crystalline entities from the Vega colony sat beside gas giant dwellers from the Altair system, all united by their shared liberation from Imperial rule. But we proved that evolution is not about perfection. It is about adaptation. It is about the willingness to change when change becomes necessary for survival. Kim's voice carried the confidence of someone who had seen the impossible become reality. While ancient empires grew rigid in their thinking, younger species remained flexible in their approach to problems. Dr. Lee Soo-jin, seated in the front row wearing the insignia of the Alliance Scientific Council, reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The same qualities that had made humans appear inferior to the Valthani, their short lifespans that created urgency, their fractured politics that encouraged diverse thinking, their crude technology that forced constant innovation, had become their greatest strategic advantages. We did not defeat the Empire by building better ships or stronger weapons, Kim continued. We won by refusing to accept their definition of what was possible. We turned our weaknesses into strengths they could not recognize or counter. The transformation extended far beyond military victory. Species that had stagnated under Imperial rule for millennia were innovating again, sharing ideas and technologies in ways that had been forbidden under Valthani law. The rigid hierarchy that had maintained order for 10,000 years was giving way to a chaotic but creative network of free worlds. The galaxy called us primitive, Admiral Kim concluded, and perhaps we were, but sometimes being primitive means being alive, being ready to grow, being willing to try solutions that more advanced civilizations have forgotten are possible. As applause filled the assembly hall, Earth's small blue dot continued its ancient orbit around an ordinary yellow star. The insignificant world that had once seemed so vulnerable now stood as proof that in the vast cosmos, survival belonged not to the oldest or strongest, but to those who never stopped learning to adapt. Crew. Age of Empire was ending. The age of innovation had begun.